"Your daughter is not invited. This is my birthday, and I'm not having poor blood at my table." That is what my mother-in-law said, loud enough that the whole restaurant turned to look at us. My 8-year-old was standing right next to me, holding a handmade card. "My name is Melissa Grant. I'm 34 years old." For a second, I didn't understand what I'd just heard. The smell of garlic and butter from the kitchen, the clink of plates, the soft piano music in the background, all kept going like normal. It was my body that stopped. My hands went cold. My face burned. My throat closed. At our table near the front, my mother-in-law, Evelyn, sat with 4 of her friends in expensive clothes and one of my husband's cousins. Champagne glasses, designer bags, perfect hair. My husband was right there at the end of the table. He looked down at his phone like he hadn't heard her. Evelyn smiled at the hostess and repeated, louder, "She's not on the list. This is an adults-only event. Please seat my son and his wife, but the child will have to leave." A couple at the next table looked over. The man frowned. The woman whispered something like, "Is that her granddaughter?" People's forks slowed. A waiter froze for a second, then pretended to polish glasses. I felt my daughter's hand grab mine tighter. Lily pushed her shoulder into my side. Her fingers were sticky from the candy she'd had in the car. I could feel the tremble in her grip. "But Grandma," Lily said in this small, confused voice, "I made you a card." Evelyn didn't even look at her. She looked at me. "Melissa," she said, the smile still on her lips, "this lunch is for family and business guests. Real money people. I'm not running a daycare, and I'm not trying to explain the menu to poor blood." My ears rang. For a moment I thought I misheard. Poor blood. Did she really say that out loud? The cousin snorted. "She wouldn't understand foie gras anyway," he said, half under his breath, but loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. One of Evelyn's friends hid a smile behind her glass. Another friend did that thing where you look down at your napkin like it's the most interesting thing in the world. Nobody said, "That's too far." Nobody said, "Stop." I heard a fork clatter onto a plate somewhere behind me. The hostess, a young woman with a tight ponytail and a notepad, shifted her weight. She looked at me, then at Evelyn, then back to me with this helpless expression. My husband finally spoke. He didn't meet my eyes. "Babe," he said, quiet, "Mom just wants an adult thing. I'll deal with it. Just take Lily home, okay? Just take Lily home." I stared at him. My husband. The man who held our baby the night she was born and cried. Now he wouldn't even look at her. He wouldn't look at me. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, bracelets clinking, that thick gold one she loved shining under the warm lights. "If you make a scene," she said lightly, "I may have to rethink helping you two with certain things. Houses, college, the will, you know." It was like she pressed a cold knife against my chest without raising her voice. The threat sat there in the air. Money, future, security, all wrapped up in her smiling face. In my head, I heard my mother's voice from when I was a kid. "We don't make trouble. We just get through," she used to say when people talked down to her at the checkout line. Maybe this is what getting through looks like, I thought for half a second. Taking Lily's hand, turning around, pretending this didn't just happen. I felt everyone watching for what I'd do. The favorite cousin, the rich friends, the hostess, my own husband. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the card in Evelyn's face. I wanted to grab a water glass and smash it on the floor. Instead, I swallowed hard. My tongue felt heavy. My cheeks burned so hot it almost hurt. I decided right there I would not cry. Not here. Not in front of Evelyn and her audience. "Come on, Lily," I said, my voice somehow steady. "We're leaving. You did nothing wrong." Lily looked up at me with big eyes. "Did I do something bad?" she whispered. My chest cracked a little. "No," I said, louder this time. "You didn't do anything bad." As we walked past the table, I saw Evelyn's keychain hanging from her designer bag. A heavy ring of keys to her office, her rentals, her storage units, all that control in her hand. Her fingers looked stiff on the stem of her glass. Someone near the bar muttered, "That's harsh," as we passed. No one stepped in. We walked out under 100 eyes. The air in the parking lot felt cold on my hot face. I buckled Lily into her booster seat with fingers that shook. The seatbelt metal felt icy in my hands. "Mom," she asked, her voice small. Why doesn't Grandma like me? I opened my mouth and nothing came out. I could say, she's mean. I could say, she's wrong. But all I heard in my head was poor blood. In that silence, something inside me changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was like a quiet click. I wasn't rich or glamorous, but I had something they never bothered to notice. I drove home with the radio off. Lily stared out the window. The words "not invited" and "poor blood" played on repeat in my head, like someone hitting rewind and play over and over. Let me back up a second. My name is Melissa Grant. I'm 34 years old. I work part-time as a bookkeeper at a small auto shop. It's not glamorous. The office smells like oil and coffee. Half my job is entering invoices and explaining to customers why their repair costs what it costs. Before that, I worked in a corporate accounting department. Long hours, constant stress. A boss who thought jokes about poor kids trying to be fancy were funny. I left after panic attacks started waking me up at 3 a.m. I married into money, not billionaire money, but old local money. My husband's family has a few small apartment buildings, some land, investments. People know their last name in our town. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, grew up with it and then grew it. She buys people gifts and then holds those gifts over their heads. That's her favorite sport. From the start, I was the outsider, the girl from the wrong side of town who married up. I heard that phrase more than once, sometimes as a joke, sometimes not. At Thanksgiving, Evelyn would say things like, "Aren't you glad you don't have to worry about bills now that you married my son?" in front of everyone. I'd smile and say, "I still work, Evelyn." But inside, I felt smaller and smaller, like I'd taken up space I hadn't earned. My long-term wound is simple: poverty shame. Growing up watching my mom count grocery money and hearing relatives whisper that we were the poor ones, I promised myself my child would never feel that. That's why this cuts so deep. I questioned myself all the time. Maybe I didn't belong at their table. Maybe I should be more grateful. Maybe I was too sensitive when they made jokes about food stamps or cheap cars. But there was one thing about me nobody there cared to notice. I understand numbers, patterns, paperwork. I can read a contract and spot what doesn't add up. I do it every day at work for customers who've been overcharged. I wasn't rich or glamorous, but I had something they never bothered to notice. And that thing was about to save me. If you've ever been treated as less than by in-laws, you know how this feels. Like there's an invisible line and you're always on the wrong side of it. If you were ever shamed for your background or your kids, I'm telling this because you're not alone. You can hear this and, if you want, stick around and listen to the whole story. You can even drop a comment later if something like this happened to you, or if you were banned from a family event for some twisted reason. And if you like hearing how quiet people finally stand up, you can subscribe and click that little write your own story thing people talk about so more of us feel less alone. That day, after I drove home from the restaurant, the humiliation sat on my chest like a weight. But the real damage came in the weeks after. That night, my husband came back from the lunch a few hours later. I was on the couch, still in my dress, staring at the blank TV. Lily had cried herself to sleep in her room. "How was lunch?" I asked. He dropped his keys in the bowl. "You really embarrassed me," he said. I blinked. "Me?" "Yeah," he said, rubbing his face. "Mom said you made this huge scene and upset Lily on purpose. You know she just wanted an adult thing. You could have talked to her later." I sat up. "Are you serious?" She called our daughter poor blood in front of half the restaurant. He frowned. "She said she didn't say that. She said you twisted her words. It was an adults-only event. That's it." The clink of glasses from the restaurant echoed in my mind, Evelyn looking right at me when she said poor blood, the cousin laughing. The hostess's eyes? She said it, I said slowly. I heard it. "She says you're stressed," he said, "that you're hearing insults that aren't there because of money stuff. You know how she is. She jokes. You always take it wrong. You know how she is." That line, I'd heard it 100 times. It was always used to smooth over whatever Evelyn did. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "I'm disappointed in how you acted," she wrote. "You scared Lily by storming out." I never said poor blood. I said poor fit for adults. You twisted it. This is exactly why I worry about your judgment. Please reflect before you accuse. She loved that word. Reflect. It was her polite way of calling me crazy. I stared at that text so long, my eyes hurt. For a minute, my mind turned against me. Did she maybe say, poor fit? Did I hear it wrong through the noise? Was I really losing it over one lunch? Then I saw Lily's face again in the car. Why doesn't Grandma like me? No kid hears, poor fit. She hears tone. Cold. Dismissive. Hate. Evelyn posted on social media that night too, a picture of her blowing out candles at the restaurant, surrounded by smiling faces. Her caption said, such a lovely day, except for one ungrateful person trying to ruin it. You can't let jealous people steal your joy. Family liked it. Heart emojis. You deserve the best. Comments. She didn't tag me. She didn't have to. The ones who needed to know knew. Over the next few weeks, the social suffocation started. Suddenly, there were brunch photos, cousins at the zoo, a kids' movie outing, all at Evelyn's expense, all without us. My daughter's cousins in matching outfits, standing in front of some play place. Lily saw one of the pictures on my husband's phone. Why weren't we there? She asked. They forgot to invite us, I lied. It sat in my throat like a rock. At a school event, a mom I barely knew came up to me. I heard your mother-in-law is super successful, she said. She said you're not really into that lifestyle, that big houses and fancy trips make you uncomfortable. That must be nice, though, not caring about money. Her words were casual. My stomach flipped. Evelyn was rewriting me to people I barely knew. At church, Evelyn went out of her way to hug me in front of others. Sweetheart, she said loudly, I know you don't like crowds or big events, but we just missed you at Sunday brunch. Poor thing, she gets so anxious. People nodded, sympathetic. Nobody knew she'd just turned my social exclusion into my choice. One Sunday night, my husband mentioned a family vacation. Mom's taking everyone to Florida next month, he said. The house only has so many rooms. She said it's just going to be my brother's family this time, but she'll see what she can do for us if things calm down. Calm down, I repeated. You mean if I apologize for what she did? He sighed. Why do you have to make everything a fight? That same week, a cousin slipped up at a barbecue. Well, kids weren't invited last time after what happened, she said, then froze, like she'd said too much. So Evelyn had told them her version, that I started drama, that I made my child cry, that she had to set boundaries with us. I was being painted as unstable, overreactive, the one they always had to manage. The worst part was how people started looking at me, like I was fragile, difficult, the problem. I started to believe it. Lying awake at night, staring at the dark ceiling, I'd hear Evelyn's voice. You're hearing insults that aren't there. You're stressed. Reflect. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I did blow one lunch out of proportion. Maybe I deserved this. Then, the financial threats shifted from hints to plans. A few weeks after the restaurant, my husband took a call in the kitchen. The walls in our little place are thin. I could hear Evelyn's voice, sharp and bright, even with the dishwasher running. You have to protect family assets from outsiders, she said. You need to think about your future, not feelings. He grunted something I couldn't catch. Later, he came into the living room where I was folding tiny t-shirts that still smelled like the detergent I bought on sale. Mom updated her estate plan, he said. She wants to set up a trust. For what? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. For bloodline heirs, he said. So the money stays with the family. She doesn't want, random people getting it if something happens. Bloodline heirs? I repeated. Like Lily. He shifted his weight. She's still working out the details. A few days later, I walked past his open laptop while he was in the shower. An email from Evelyn's lawyer sat there. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. It talked about a draft trust. It mentioned future children of my son, but didn't name our child. There was a note at the bottom from Evelyn. Please ensure step relations and non-conforming heirs are excluded, it said. Non-conforming heirs. Step relations. Outsiders. I felt cold all over. My fingers tingled. They were talking about my daughter like she was some stranger they could just forget. On top of that, there was a spreadsheet Evelyn had made. Colorful cells. Projected payments. Mortgage options. At the top, it said house refi plan. Her name was listed as co-owner if she helped us with a $25,000 contribution. The numbers made sense on the surface. Lower monthly payment, quicker equity, all that. But in my gut, I knew it was a trap. Later, when I asked my husband about Lily's college fund, he said, "Mom thinks we should focus on long-term family investments first, build the portfolio, then we'll worry about college." The message was clear. Money for us would come if we played along, if I stayed quiet, if Lily stayed on the edge. I almost folded, honestly. There was one night where I sat at the kitchen table, the spreadsheet printed out in front of me. I added the numbers up. It was a good deal on paper. A real chance to stop feeling like we were drowning in bills. Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe I should apologize to Evelyn for misunderstanding. Maybe I should send her a long text saying I was sorry and that we were grateful. Maybe if I just swallowed my pride, Lily would at least get some college money. Maybe this is what adults do. Trade dignity for stability. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over Evelyn's name. I could already hear myself saying it. "I'm sorry. I overreacted." Then Lily wandered out of her room, rubbing her eyes. "Mom," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Yeah, baby." "When I'm big," she said, "will I still not be good enough to go to Grandma's parties?" Her voice cracked a little on good enough. My hand went numb. The phone felt heavy. That was the line. The emotional crack. Maybe I deserve this. Maybe I'm the problem. That thought had been in my head all day. But looking at my kid, I knew that even if I did deserve something, she did not. I put the phone down. I didn't text Evelyn. Instead, I started to think clearly. First, I stopped reacting, at least out loud. When my husband brought up his mom, I didn't argue. I asked short questions. What does the contract say? Can I read it? How does it protect us? He would roll his eyes and say I was overcomplicating things, but he relaxed, thinking I was backing down. At night, after Lily was asleep, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The house was quiet except for the fridge humming. I made a mug of strong coffee. The bitter smell filled the room as I logged into our joint bank accounts. I exported every statement as a PDF, savings, checking, the small retirement account. I plugged in a cheap flash drive I'd bought at the dollar store and copied them all. I opened Evelyn's emails. I downloaded the spreadsheet she made with the $25,000 help. I took screenshots of her texts where she tied money to my behavior. I printed those at the auto shop office printer when my boss wasn't around, the cheap paper warm in my hands. I bought a spiral notebook for 99 cents and started writing things down. Dates, what she said, how she phrased poor blood and outsiders and legacy. I wrote down when Lily came home crying or said something about Grandma not liking her. This wasn't about revenge. It was about survival, about not feeling crazy. Then I made an appointment. I found a family lawyer online with good reviews and a simple website. No fancy office pictures, just clear bullet points about wills, trusts, and marital property. Her name was Claire. When I walked into her office, my heart was pounding. The waiting room smelled like old carpet and coffee. A printer hummed behind the front desk. I clutched my folders so tight, my fingers hurt. Claire was in her 50s, with gray in her hair and kind eyes. She didn't look like the sharp, perfect lawyers I'd seen around Evelyn. She looked real. "So," she said while flipping open a legal pad, "tell me what's going on." The words poured out. The restaurant, poor blood, the texts, the trust language, the spreadsheet, the outsider's line. I waited for her to say I was too sensitive, that it was just family drama. She didn't. She said, "That was not a misunderstanding. That was emotional abuse, especially in front of your child." The tightness in my chest loosened a little. Someone believed me. She explained how trusts and property work where we live. She told me that if Evelyn became co-owner of our house, she could force decisions in the future, even push us to sell if she wanted her money out. "She's not just being generous," Claire said. "She's buying control, and she's trying to write your daughter out without writing her name down. That's not an accident." We went through the draft trust language I'd copied. Claire circled phrases like non-aligned descendants and discretionary heirs. "This is vague on purpose," she said. "It gives her lawyer room to argue later that your daughter wasn't meant to be included without ever saying that clearly now." I asked, "Can she just erase my child like that?" "Not fully," Claire said. "There are limits. Your husband can still leave things directly to your daughter in his own will. You have rights as a spouse. And if she uses money to punish you for parenting choices or boundaries, that can look very bad if it ever gets dragged into court." Claire helped me open a savings account in my name only, $50 a paycheck. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No Evelyn on it. She told me to keep documenting. "Don't send angry texts," she said. "Don't threaten. Just save things. Ask calm questions in front of other people. Let her show who she is." Around the same time, someone else noticed what was happening. Miss Jordan, my daughter's teacher. She caught me one day after school as I was zipping Lily's backpack. "Is everything okay at home?" she asked. Lily's been quieter. She's mentioned a mean grandma a few times. My stomach dropped. "She said that?" Miss Jordan nodded. "She said her grandma doesn't want her at family parties because she's not good enough. That's not something kids make up easily." I felt my eyes sting. I told Miss Jordan a short, clean version. "My mother-in-law is very focused on money and image," I said. "She's been leaving my daughter out of things." Miss Jordan said, "Write down exactly what Lily says when she talks about it. It might matter later, for her counselor, for anyone who needs to understand the pattern." So I did. Every time Lily said something like, "Grandma likes my cousins better," or "I'm the poor kid," I wrote it in the notebook with the date. Meanwhile, Evelyn got cockier. At one family dinner, she raised her wine glass and laughed. "In life you have two choices," she said. "You can be responsible and sign the papers that protect your future, or you can be like some people and make everything emotional. Guess who gets rewarded?" People chuckled. My husband smiled weakly. I kept my face blank. A week later, she announced a family financial planning night at her house. "It'll just be paperwork," my husband said. "Her lawyer, her accountant, will get everything straight. You don't need to stress." "I want to be there," I said. "If my name or our house is on anything, I'm reading it." He sighed but agreed. He thought I was giving in. I wasn't. I was getting ready. On the night of the meeting, I walked into Evelyn's big living room with a plain black folder tucked under my arm. The place smelled like lemon polish and some heavy floral perfume. Her hardwood floors gleamed. Every surface was perfect. On the coffee table, stacks of papers waited, pens in a neat row, a folder labeled Family Future Plan in gold letters. Her lawyer sat in an armchair, gray suit perfectly fitted, leather briefcase by his feet. Her nephew was perched on the edge of the couch. Two of her close friends sat off to the side, wine in hand, ready for the show. Evelyn stood next to the fireplace. "Thank you all for being here," she said. "This is about protecting our legacy and making sure the right people are provided for." She glanced at me when she said right people. My husband and I sat on the love seat. My legs barely touched the ground. My hands rested on my folder, fingers feeling the slight roughness of the cardboard. She slid a document toward my husband. "This is the agreement about your house and your share of the trust," she said. "Very simple. My lawyer will explain it in simple terms for the non-financial people." Her friends laughed politely. The lawyer smiled at me like I was a kid. I let them talk. They threw around phrases like conditional co-ownership, discretionary heirs, right of first refusal. My heart was beating fast, but my mind was calm. This was numbers, words on paper, my home turf. When the lawyer mentioned Evelyn's $25,000 contribution, I spoke up. "Can I see that section?" I asked. Evelyn rolled her eyes. "If this is too much for you, dear, you don't have to understand all of it," she said. "The men will handle it." Heat flashed in my face, but this time it wasn't shame. It was anger, cold and clear. "Actually," I said, "I'd like to understand exactly what we're agreeing to." My husband shifted. "Mel, it's fine," he muttered. "Mom's just trying to help." I ignored him. I read the paragraph slowly. "Right of first refusal," I said. "Lien. In favor of Evelyn Grant, co-owner. So if we ever try to sell or refinance, she gets to decide first. If we default, she can claim full ownership." The room went quiet. One of Evelyn's friends looked up, surprised. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Well, that's just standard protection for the contributing partner," he said. "So she could basically force us to sell or block any change," I said. We'd be renters in our own house, just with mortgage debt attached. No one had said it that plainly. Saying it out loud made the reality land in the room. Then I flipped to the trust summary. This part about heirs, I said. It says, excluding non-aligned descendants or non-recognized relations from discretionary distributions. There's no list of which descendants are aligned. There are no names. Evelyn's nephew's wife, who had 2 kids, frowned. What does that mean? She asked. I looked straight at Evelyn's lawyer. Can you explain in simple words what that means? He hesitated. It gives the trustee flexibility to decide which heirs receive distributions, he said. Flexibility to cut people out, I said. Like a grandchild who isn't acting how she likes. One of Evelyn's friends shifted in her seat. Wait, she said quietly. Is that what this is? I opened my folder and laid my papers on the table. The printed spreadsheet with the $25,000 gift. The email where Evelyn insisted on co-ownership, screenshots of her texts tying help to my behavior, notes from Claire with highlighted sections. I met with my own lawyer, I said, my voice low but steady. She explained exactly how this works. You're not just helping us. You're buying legal control over our house and leaving it open to cut my child out of your trust whenever you want. Evelyn's smile disappeared. Her jaw tightened. You ungrateful little girl, she said softly. After everything I've done. I'm a 34-year-old woman, I said. And I'm protecting my daughter, not attacking you. I turned to the family lawyer. Did you tell my husband that if we default on one payment or disagree about standards, his mother could force a sale of our home? I asked. He shifted in his seat. A flush crept up his neck. The document does give your mother-in-law significant control, he said, but that's typical when one party brings more equity. So no, I said. You didn't tell him plainly. Evelyn tried to cut in. This is all to protect the family from outsiders, she said. You're twisting things again, making drama. I'm his legal wife, I said calmly. Our daughter is your blood grandchild. Who exactly are the outsiders here? I could feel everyone watching. The nephew, the friends, even the lawyer. I pulled out my notebook and flipped it open. January 14, I read. Restaurant on 5th. In front of at least 20 witnesses, you said you were not having poor blood at your table. You told your friends my daughter would embarrass you in front of real money people. That never happened, Evelyn snapped. You're obsessed with that lunch. Let it go. I looked at her friend to the right, the one who had half smiled that day. You were there, I said. Did she call my daughter poor blood? Her face went pale. She glanced at Evelyn, then down at her lap. I don't remember the exact words, she muttered. But you remember the meaning, I said. You remember a little girl being sent away. The silence in the room felt thick. I continued. March 3, I said. Text from you. If you want my help with the house, you'll respect my boundaries and my guest list. March 25. Email to your lawyer. Step relations and non-conforming heirs are excluded. April 10. Conversation with your son. Protect the family assets from outsiders. I slid copies of those messages across the table. Tying financial support to whether you can humiliate my child, I said slowly, isn't boundaries, it's control. Evelyn's face flushed deep red. Her voice shook a little. You are poisoning my son against his own mother, she said. You're making me look abusive in front of my friends and my lawyer. I was only trying to help you two, to give you a life you could never build on your own. That's exactly the point, I said. You think that because you have money, you get to decide who is worthy in this family, whose blood is rich enough to sit at your table, who gets help, who gets erased. She slammed her hand on the table. The pens rattled. If you don't sign, she said, you get nothing from me. No help, no trust, no college money. Remember that when you're scraping by and your daughter is stuck in some cheap apartment. My heart thudded. Old fear rose for a second. That picture of food stamps. The shame. The feeling of standing at the free lunch line as a kid while others watched. But then another picture pushed in. Lily in the parking lot asking why Grandma didn't like her. I took a breath. My hands had stopped shaking. I already opened an account for her, I said. It's small, but it's ours. I'd rather be broke than bought. Her nephew stared at his own papers. "Wait," he said. "Why does my agreement not have all those behavior clauses? It just says I get 50%. No standards, no aligned descendants." His wife grabbed his paper and looked. Her eyes widened. "Yeah," she said. "She gave you a clean deal." Evelyn snapped at them. "Your situation is different," she said. "You've always been loyal. You understand business." So she was saying it out loud now. Loyalty for money, obedience for security. One of her friends put her glass down slowly. "I have to say, Judy," she said, "this looks bad. Using contracts to control kids and grandkids. If my mother had done this to me, I'd be furious too." The lawyer, sensing the room turn, adjusted his glasses. "Perhaps we should revisit some of this language," he said quickly. "Make things clearer. There's no need for anyone to sign anything tonight." Evelyn looked like someone had slapped her. "No," she said. "This is how it is. You sign, or you're out." I stood up. My legs felt steady. "I'm not signing," I said. "Our house will not be tied to your money. Our child will not depend on your mood or your image to have a future. If you want to set up a college account directly in her name, with us as joint custodians, we can talk. If not, we'll manage." My husband picked up the document again, really reading for the first time. His forehead was shiny with sweat. "Mom," he said slowly, "did you really put in here that you can take our share if we harm the brand in your sole judgment?" "It's just legal wording," she said. "You're being dramatic." He looked at me, then at the lawyer. "Is she being dramatic?" he asked. The lawyer sighed. "It is a broad clause," he said. "It does give your mother a lot of discretion." My husband put the document down, pushed it back across the table. "I'm not signing this today," he said. "Not without changes. Not without making sure my wife and my daughter are protected." That was the visible shift. My husband, who had always defaulted to, "You know how mom is," saying no in her own living room, in front of her people. Evelyn stared at him like she didn't know him. "You're choosing her over me," she said. "I'm choosing my family," he said. "My whole family." She tried one last thing. "If you walk away from this, don't come crying to me when you're broke," she said. I picked up my folder. The cardboard felt solid under my fingers. "I won't," I said. "I'd rather be broke than bought, and my daughter will never pay for your control with her dignity." One of her friends let out a low, "Wow." The nephew's wife nodded slowly, eyes on me. We left. No one stopped us. In the weeks after that night, things changed. Not overnight, not magically, but clearly. Evelyn pulled back. She stopped offering money. The help dried up. The daily texts to my husband turned into once a week, then every other. My husband and I met with Claire again. We decided not to take any co-ownership deals. We refinanced our house ourselves with a smaller loan. The monthly payment was tight, but no one else's name was on it. We opened a $529 education account in Lily's name. $50 here, $20 there. Tax refunds. Small, but constant. Claire helped us draft a simple will, nothing fancy. It just said that if something happened to us, our assets go directly to Lily, her name, in ink. No aligned descendant nonsense. I blocked Evelyn from having any access or view of our bank accounts. No more letting her help us set up automatic payments on things in her name. I told my husband I would no longer send Lily anywhere that she wasn't clearly and respectfully invited. If she wants to see her grandma, I said, it has to be on neutral ground, with both of us there, no more alone at events where she's treated as less than. He agreed. Slowly, quietly, he had seen enough. Socially, I stepped back from Evelyn's circle. When people at church asked why we weren't at her parties anymore, I said, we had some legal disagreements about money and boundaries. We chose what was safest for our daughter. Most people nodded and didn't ask more. A few looked curious. A couple looked like they understood exactly what I meant. At home, things were simple. Our little house wasn't fancy. The carpet was worn in spots, but it was ours. On Saturday mornings, I'd fold laundry in the living room while Lily watched cartoons. The smell of clean cotton filled the air. Her laughter floated from the couch when her favorite character did something silly. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about what we'd turned down. The bigger house, the Florida trips, the trust money. My chest would tighten for a second. The old poor kid fear never fully leaves you. But then, I'd remember the restaurant, my little girl holding that card, my mother-in-law's voice saying, "Poor blood," in front of everyone, and I'd know we chose right. My power didn't come from a big paycheck or a fancy job. It came from understanding what Evelyn was trying to do on paper, from saving screenshots and statements, from asking questions out loud in front of others, from refusing to let anyone decide that my child's worth was less because my bank account was smaller. If you've been told you or your kids aren't good enough for someone's image or money, I want you to hear this. You're not crazy for feeling hurt. You're not ungrateful for wanting respect more than gifts. You're allowed to say no to money that comes with strings wrapped tight around your throat. If something like this has happened to you, you can share your story, even just a piece of it. Put it in the comments, let someone know they're not alone. And if you want more stories where quiet people learn how to set real boundaries, you can hit subscribe. Click Write Your Own Story to help this story reach others who need it. Thank you for listening to the worst lunch of my life and what came after. If you're sitting in your car replaying words like not invited or you're too sensitive, wondering if you imagined it, you didn't. Talk about it. Write it down. Get your proof. You don't have to blow up. You can be calm, prepared, and firm. Tell me how you would have handled that restaurant moment or the paperwork night in the comments. Would you have walked out sooner, sat down and taken it? I'm not here to judge. I'm here so none of us feel alone in this. You can like, share, subscribe if this kind of real, messy, family power story helped you see something in your own life more clearly. I hope you choose peace with firm boundaries over wealth with strings. And I hope you know this space is a place where your voice actually matters.